Today was a rough day, Patrick thought to himself. It seemed like he'd never worked that hard his entire 20 years on the job. All he could think about was getting off his feet and relaxing in front of the television for a couple of hours. But before settling in, he wandered into the kitchen to get himself a cold beer. He popped open the top and sank into his lazy boy. Just as he got about halfway through his drink, his mind pivoted and he felt a little uncomfortable with drinking again. About a year ago, he had committed his life to Jesus Christ. Before his conversion, he would go out late with the guys and do a little gambling, a little drinking, well, a lot of drinking. It was nothing for him to wake up in the morning on his front porch having slept there all night after passing out drunk. His drinking had become a problem at home and even on his job. He would get a drink in the morning before leaving for work, and even while he was on the job. He got flagged twice by his supervisor for intoxication in the workplace. When he came home, he needed a drink to unwind from a hard day's work. His incessant drinking was destroying his marriage and his life. Many nights his wife Maria cried herself to sleep, praying that he would turn to Christ and allow him to turn his life around. But the more she pleaded with him to pray or just come to church with her, he'd angrily shout at her and say, "I don't need God's help. I can handle my own life on my own terms." And so quietly, she would retreat to the bedroom and just pray. On one Sunday morning on Father's Day, Maria convinced Patrick to come to her church with her. "Just this time, honey, please come with me," she said. And so he grudgingly agreed. It was one of the most exciting moments of her marriage. Maybe God would finally answer her prayers. Maybe. So they all got in the car that day, she, Patrick, and their only son, Victor, and to church they went. It was clear that Patrick was deeply affected by what he heard that day. As they left for home, he was very quiet, not saying a word. Maria asked him did he enjoy the service, and he murmured, it was okay, but it was undeniable that something was happening on the inside of him. The next Sunday morning, Patrick had gotten his own clothes together and told Maria that he was coming again. She almost exploded with joy. He sat quietly and listened, just as he did the last time, listening intently to the message. As the days went by, Maria began to notice that he wasn't drinking as much. She didn't see him get his usual morning drink, and she no longer smelled that lingering odor of alcohol on him. Her Patrick was beginning to change. No, the Lord was beginning to change Patrick. That next Sunday morning, as they now had a practice of going to church together, a most amazing thing happened. When the offer of salvation was extended by the minister, Patrick stood up and walked down the aisle. Maria was so overjoyed that she went down the aisle by his side, even though she had given her life to Christ years earlier. From that day, their lives were different. They were on a new path together. Going to worship service was good for the whole family. Both Patrick and Maria were growing closer to God, and their relationship couldn't be any better. Patrick was also learning more and more about the faith than he ever had. It so happened, at one Bible study meeting, the subject of Christian freedoms came up, and the question arose of whether or not it was permissible for Christians to drink. Several points of views came up during the lesson. Patrick listened intently, measuring each argument. Although the pastor warned against drinking and had a mostly negative response toward it, what stood out most in Patrick's mind was that one scripture where it said, "Do not be drunken with wine where it is in excess, but be filled with the Spirit." He understood, so he thought, that drinking was not absolutely forbidden, but was strongly cautioned against. This gave him a new perspective. He thought to himself, as long as I can control my drinking and never get drunk, there's nothing wrong with me having a casual drink every now and then. So he began to take a drink every now and then just to settle himself. On a Thursday evening, While working late, he got a disturbing call from Maria. She told him to come to Riverside Hospital immediately. She refused to say what had happened over the phone, but just to come right away. When he arrived, he found out that his 9-year-old son, Victor, was riding his bike and had been struck by a hit-and-run driver. He was undergoing emergency surgery as Patrick and Maria held each other praying. Hours later, the doctor came out with his head down. They knew that they had lost him. Patrick was never quite the same. He found out that that casual drink that he had started having again had become a source of consolation for him. Before long, he was not simply having an occasional drink, but was drowning himself in hard liquor. He went to work drunk. He even got fired from his job. His marriage quickly dissolved, and Maria left him. One day, he awoke from a drunken stupor after finding himself laying on the floor of the garage. When he opened his eyes, he saw an empty bottle of liquor and a happy family photo that he had been holding before he passed out drunk. And he cried.
You have been listening to Start Your Day, a daily devotional with Pastor Eric Lee. To see more of our resources, please visit us at dailyliving.org. Again, that's dailyliving.org. We will be glad to hear from you. God bless you and have a wonderful day.